Hello everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today it is already time to talk about all of my most anticipated releases for Q2 of the year. So this covers April, May, and June, and I have quite a few books that I'm looking forward to this quarter, so let's go ahead and get on into it. So I actually have 9 books that I'm looking forward to in April, and the first one comes out on April 2nd, and that is The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. So if you've heard of this author before, she is the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I really loved the first 2 books in that series, so I do definitely want to pick up more from her. And in this book in particular, we follow a girl who is investigating the disappearance of her mother while filming a documentary. So it's giving the same vibes as A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. That one was a podcast, whereas this one is a documentary. So of course, I'm really looking forward to it. Holly Jackson's writing was just so engaging, and I could not put her books down. The mysteries she writes are really fascinating, so I can't wait for this one. Next, also on April 2nd, is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and in this one we follow a man named Justin who is cursed, and thanks to a Reddit thread, everyone in the world knows about it. And in this curse, every time he dates a woman, the very next person that woman meets is her soulmate. And so that's all I really know. I don't read a whole lot going into books, especially romance books, because we all know how they're going to end. But I have read one book from Abby Jimenez before, and I didn't love it, but I connected to it so heavily, and everybody loves Abby Jimenez, and so I really want to read more from her because I have just heard such great things. Although that doesn't always work out for me, but nonetheless, I still want to read this book. Coming out on April 4th is Mina and the Cult by Amy McCaw. This is book 3 in the Mina and the Undead series, and this is a young adult vampire series. I've read the first book and I loved it so much. I saw myself so much in Mina, and it's just so much fun because it's vampires set in New Orleans. I have not read the sequel yet, but I'm still putting this 3rd book on my anticipated releases list because I do want to read all of these books. Coming out on April 9th is S.A. Barnes' newest sci-fi horror, Ghost Station. Now on this one, we follow a crew that is having to survive on an ancient, isolated, abandoned planet. And that's all I'm going to know going into this. I know it's sci-fi and I know it's horror. And S.A. Barnes' previous book, Dead Silence, was also sci-fi horror, and I really enjoyed it. I actually do have an arc of this one, so I'm hoping to get to it soon because I love the added sci-fi elements into horror, and I think they're done really well. Also coming out on April 9th is The Darkness Rises by Stacey Stokes, and this is a young adult mystery, and Stacey Stokes always includes a little magical twist in her mysteries, and in this one in particular we follow a girl named Whitney. Now since Whitney was little, she could always tell when someone is about to die, and the way she tells this is because that person who's about to die kind of has this giant dark cloud over their head, and the closer they are to death, the darker the cloud, and so over time she has learned that she can save people, but unfortunately the people she saves aren't always good. And in particular, last year she saved one boy that went on to kill a bunch of people, and she's trying to hide this secret while also dealing with this guilt, but something happens and it seems like somebody knows what she did, and so now they are threatening her and the people in her life. I read Stacey Stokes last year for the first time, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved her so much. So this book sounds like something I will really love. It sounds hard hitting. There are trigger warnings in this book because it deals with some serious topics, but I just really love stories that have that little magical element, and I think Stacey Stokes does it really well. I haven't heard anybody other than me talk about her books, and I definitely recommend picking up her first book and then looking forward to this book when it comes out in April. Also on April 9th is The Gathering by C.J. Tudor, and this one I believe follows a detective in rural Alaska trying to solve a crime, and that's all I'm going to know about this book. Now I am curious. I have read one book from C.J. Tudor before, and that was The Drift, and I didn't love it, but it is a book that I constantly think about, so I definitely want to read more from this author because I cannot get the last book off of my mind. Again on April 9th is Bless Your Heart by Lindy Ryan, and I am, again, not going to read too much going into this because it has my buzzword, and that is vampires. All I know is that this is set in Southeast Texas in 1999. I live in South Texas. I was born in the 90s. I'm basically a vampire, so this book just sounds perfect for me. And also the title, Bless Your Heart, is such a southern like insult. I am so looking forward to this one, and I will be devastated if I don't love it. Coming out on April 23rd is Kill Her Twice by Stacey Lee. This is yet another author that I have read from previously, and Stacey Lee seems to write mystery historical fiction novels, and this one is no different. It takes place in 1932, and we follow a girl who is like the beloved pride and joy of Chinatown when one day she is murdered, but the police are not interested in looking into this crime, and it also seems like there might be a police cover-up. So I'm interested because I love the added historicalness into a mystery, but this one definitely seems like it's going to be a lot and definitely hard-hitting once again. And the last book in April is April 30th, and that is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. And this one sounds so fascinating. So we follow a group of siblings who their mother has just died. So when they go home to clean out the house, they discover home videotapes. And as they are watching them to kind of look at these memories that they loved so much, they see a videotape of a dark, mysterious night that they have no recollection of. So again, I have read one book by Geneva Rose before and I loved it, even though it wasn't highly rated, but this one also sounds so fascinating. I'm also kind of a sucker for the trope of like home videos and something mysterious on that home video, and I just know I'm going to fly through this because Geneva Rose's writing style is so addictive and I am so looking forward to it. Moving on to May, there are 8 books that I'm really anticipating, and the first one comes out on May 7th, and that is The Return of Ellie Black by Amiko Jean. So this one is a mystery thriller, and this town's world turns upside down when Ellie Black, who disappeared a while ago, returns, and she kind of brings more questions than answers. So I am always interested in the trope of a missing person returns, and we have to figure out what happened to them. I have read from Amiko Jean before, but I read a young adult romance, so I'm interested to see how Amiko Jean does a thriller or mystery book. Also on May 7th is The Ballad of Darcy and Russell by Morgan Matson, and I literally know zero about this book other than it is a romance contemporary from Morgan Matson. Once again, that's kind of her genre of choice, and I'm not going to look into this one because I will read anything Morgan Matson writes. She is an auto-by-author for me, so sorry, I'm not going to give you a synopsis, but I see the name Morgan Matson and I just have to add it to my anticipated releases list. Also coming out on May 7th is Love, Lies, and Cherry Pie by Jackie Lau. And in this book, we follow a woman whose mother is constantly meddling in her love life and is telling her, you have to get married and you should marry our friend's son, Mark. So one day, she is just so tired of her mom meddling that she agrees to be in a fake relationship with Mark. And obviously, fake romance. I believe this is also a foodie romance, which is like my biggest buzzwords. I have once again read from Jackie Lau before, and I really enjoyed the book I read from her, which was also a foodie romance. So you will most likely be seeing this in a vlog from me this year. Coming out on May 14th is The Dangerous Ones by Lauren Blackwood, and this one is actually a fantasy, which is not my typical thing, but let me just read you the tagline. It says, a romantic historical fantasy set in the American Civil War with vampires and people with demigod-like abilities. That's all I need to know. First of all, you say vampires, also historical, and then demigod-like abilities. I am so intrigued. I need to know what this is like. Also on May 14th is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. Once again, when I see Veronica Roth, I add her to my list because I want to read all of her books. She is the author of Divergent, and so I love that series. This one, however, I believe is a novella, and again, the tagline is what gets me. It says, step into a city where monsters feast on human emotions, knights split their souls to make their weapons, and witches always take more than they give. Again, fantasy, not my thing, but I trust Veronica Roth. Coming out on May 21st is You Like It Darker by Stephen King. Of course, Stephen King, he writes horror, and this one in particular is another short story collection, and I really do enjoy his short story collections, so again, adding this to my list. Coming out on May 21st is Wild About You by Caitlin Hill, and this is a young adult romance, but Caitlin Hill tends to write a little bit older young adult romances, so a lot of times they're like 18 or 19, and she is my favorite young adult romance author. I've read her 2 books that are out so far, and both of them were 5 stars, phenomenal, and this one sounds amazing. So in this one in particular, we follow a girl who's really struggling with her recent anxiety diagnosis, and she decides to audition for this outdoor reality TV show competition. And of course, another boy is on this reality show with her, but I am so excited because an outdoor competition reality show, and Caitlin Hill has also done another reality show book before, and that was like more Bachelor style, and I loved it. So I have complete faith in Caitlin Hill. And the last book in May, also on May 21st, is Attached at the Hip by Christine Riccio. Now, I have read one book by Christine Riccio that I loved and another book by her that I DNF'd. So I wasn't sure about this book, but again, the tagline got me. So it says, Survivor meets The Bachelor in Attached at the Hip, an irresistible romantic adventure. So, Survivor and The Bachelor, I haven't really kept up with The Bachelor, but Survivor, that is my thing. I've applied to that show 5 times, so anytime I see a book that has like the comparable to Survivor, I'm in. Moving on to June, I once again have 8 books that I'm looking forward to, and the first one comes out on June 4th, and that is Two Sides to Every Murder by Danielle Valentine. In this book, it is a young adult thriller, and we follow 2 teens who return to the site of the murder that changed their fate. Now, Danielle Valentine, once again, is an author that I've read from before and absolutely loved the thriller that she wrote. It was so fast-paced and intriguing, and I could not put it down, and so I'm really hoping this one is also the same. I also just really love her covers of her books as well. Now, sorry if the synopsis isn't going into too much depth. I don't like to read too much about books before I go into them, especially thrillers, and especially if it's an author that I've loved before, but I just feel like that's all you need to know. 2 teens returning to the site of the murder that changed their fate. Coming out on June 11th is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I believe this is another adult STEMinist novel from her. It seems like we're following 2 people who are at rival companies and they start up a romance. Now, the way this book is described, I'm not sure that I'm going to love it, but it is Ali Hazelwood, so I have complete faith that I will love it, so we will see. Coming out on June 18th is my most anticipated book of the entire year, and that is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Now, Riley Sager is one of my favorite authors of all time. He can do no wrong for me, and this book is actually his first book with a male protagonist, which I'm a little nervous about because I love his female protagonists. But in this book in particular, we follow this man who, when he was a child, his childhood best friend disappeared in the middle of the night, and now he is returning home to his childhood home 30 years later, and strange things start happening at night. Again, Riley Sager, I would die for this man, and I trust him completely. Also coming out on June 18th is One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. In this book, it is a adult romance, I believe, and we follow a woman who has to walk down the aisle at her best friend's wedding with the man who gave her book a very public 1-star review. So we might have a little bit of enemies to lovers here, and I'm really excited. I have never heard of this author, I've never read from them before, but this one sounds really good. Coming out on June 11th is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. Now, this one I believe takes place in the 90s, and it's about a cursed film. That's all I'm gonna know going into it. I've read one book by Paul Tremblay before, and I did not love it, but I've heard great things about this author, and I am interested in like all of his books, especially this one, because once again, anything with like a film, movie, especially if it's cursed, I'm there. Coming out on June 25th is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Now, if you have seen any of my videos where I talk about her, Ashley Poston knows my soul. She has my heart and soul, and she literally just like looks into my brain and my heart and my soul and writes it on page. And I love her for it every single time, and I sob every single time. Now this one, I don't want to know a lot going into it because Ashley Poston, I just want to pick up her books and fall in love with this writing that she does. But the tagline, it says, a professor of literature finds herself caught up in a work of fiction. Literally. Intriguing, because Ashley Poston is another one of those who adds a little bit of a magical twist into her romance books, and I love it every single time. Also coming out on June 25th is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is a horror. I mean, look at the cover and the title. That's what really sucked me in here. But this is also about a female serial killer from the Korean American perspective. So intriguing already. That's all I need to know. And the last book I have to talk about, also on June 25th, is another serial killer book, and that is Love Letters to a Serial Killer by Tasha Coyle. Now this one is about this man who is arrested as a serial killer, and this woman is just completely outraged about the crimes that he committed, so she continues to write these letters to him to get all of her rage out on paper until one day he writes back. Now this tagline on, like the genre tag on Goodreads is thriller, so I don't think this is a romance, although the cover and the title seem like it is, which I feel like would be a little weird, a romance with a serial killer, but we will see because I am intrigued by this title alone, and I hope I love it. So those are all the books I'm looking forward to in quarter two. Let me know your most anticipated release of this next quarter, and if you're looking forward to any of these books as well. Now, of course, these titles are subject to change because publishing dates are always changing, and sorry if I didn't go too in-depth with the synopsis. I don't like to read too much into books. I just need to know a little bit to intrigue me, and all of these I am just so looking forward to. Of course I am. But that is it for this video. If you have made it this far, go ahead and leave the raindrop emoji because that's the first thing that pops into my head. But that is it. Thank you so much. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!